If I look like I'm a mess and I just rolled out of bed, it's because I absolutely am. For those of you that haven't been following the past couple days, my account was the victim of a hijacking where it got turned into a Tesla ad account. For those of you that are curious as to how that happened to me and how a lot of hacking attacks, I can't talk, how a lot of hackers are gaining access to people's accounts with two-factor authentication, please check out Linus Tech Tips videos. I'm going to link it in the description down below, so that way you guys know how to protect yourselves against these kinds of attacks. I straight up thought that like 12 years of my life was deleted, but thankfully YouTube was able to recover it. Unfortunately, I think that if I were a smaller creator and this happened to me, I don't know if I would have gotten the like the support that I got. So I want to give like a huge shout out to Vatividya, to Breebun, to Smoketown, to Loki, pretty much everybody that was amplifying my tweet and my frustration and helping me get visibility on that. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody that has sent me tips and given me subscriptions and has like kept has kept tabs on my account through all of this. Thank you so much for sticking with me. If you're new here, we break down Soulsborne lore and I scream like Charlie Day. I have like conspiracy boards. We get a little crazy here. For those of you that are longtime subscribers and you accidentally unfollowed me because of the Tesla ad thing, please consider hitting that subscribe button. If you're new here, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It helps me out a whole lot. But yeah, let's get started because there's a lot. This is like this trailer is so hard for me to break down because I'll stop it literally every 0.5 seconds. So let's get started.
Mikula the Kind spoke of the beginning. The seduction.
So here I already have to stop. The narrator is a female that is telling us something that Mikula relayed to her or that she heard that Mikula said. I actually have speculation. We got an art asset this morning that is this knight that at first I was like, oh wait, is this like a weird different version of Mikula because of the hairstyle and a bunch of other stuff? But I think given the narrator and some of the information that she's privy to, it sounds like she's telling us, the Tarnished, about the situation. And because she's at the front of the pack right here in the cinematic, I do think that she's kind of like the leader of our motley crew of NPCs, and she's going to help us figure out what Mikula was up to. For those of you that didn't follow some of the Miyazaki interviews, Miyazaki stated that Mikula is currently in the Shadow Realm. I'm going to call it the Shadow Realm because I keep forgetting. Is it Shaded Lands? Is it Shadowlands? I'm going to call it the Shadow Realm. So Mikula went to the Shadow Realm to do something, and we're trying to figure out what that something is. But along the way, Mikula also found the sins or like the footsteps of Marika, their mother. So we're kind of going to be learning about two different mysteries at once. We're going to be learning about what Queen Marika did in the Shadow Realm, and then we're going to be learning about what Mikula is doing in the Shadow Realm. So I think that this character, despite the fact that I think we're going to be hearing memories of Mikula, or we might be hearing Mikula's voice at some points in the story, I do think that this character, this female who's narrating the trailer, might be our physical guide through the Shadow Realm. All right. Oh, also another like little detail in this scene. A lot of people have been wondering what this image is. Like, what is Queen Marika reaching into? And like, is this actually Queen Marika? So first off, yes, this is Queen Marika. We see the like spiral jewelry that's going around her hold on, it's Cooper the Black Blade. He's like ruining the video. I'm so sorry, everybody. Okay, so Queen Marika has this spiral bracelet, and some people are asking me, is this Queen Marika? Yes, it is. So FromSoft's been really diligent about making sure that the jewelry and the hairstyles for certain NPCs are going to be what allows us to identify them across like a bunch of different promotional materials and art, between like the cinematic stories and like the actual gameplay, because we don't get to see the characters' faces a lot. Their faces are almost always obstructed. So I feel like hairstyle and jewelry are kind of like our key things that help us identify them. So yes, I feel like this is Queen Marika. It also talks about like when Mikula talks about Queen Marika, it's very obvious that this is Queen Marika. There's no question about that. As to what this is, it definitely seems like it's fabric. There is hems, and there's like little pieces of fabric that are kind of coming off of this material. It looks suede to me. So immediately I was thinking like leather working. And a lot of folks, including myself, think that this might be Glow-Eyed Queen related or Godskin Apostle related because of the way that this looks. It definitely looks like some kind of leather or skin material, and it's like that cream white color that the Godskins wear. It isn't as shiny as the Godskin apparel, though. Their like leather working is almost like slick and shiny. This is more matte. It looks like suede. So I don't know if that's just like a stylistic choice or difference, but maybe that's what this is. This could be like a wholly new entity or character, but this is fabric. And then when she pulls
And the betrayal.
this like hair / light / material out of this entity, we see like an exposed piece of skin. This looks like a pregnant belly to me. The language that's being used here is also super flowery, and it's going to be flowery for a little bit. So it's hard to discern what's happening. Like it's intentionally obtuse. So it says like the seduction, the betrayal, like is it like a romantic seduction that then caused a betrayal, or was it the seduction of power that caused the betrayal? There's also the word affair that gets used later. It's uncertain whether or not that's a marital affair or if it's like an event, like the affair, like a jaunt, like a fun little a fun little excursion that she went on. I don't know, but yeah, let's keep going. We get the goop.
An affair from which gold arose.
Actually, hold on, let me wait. Okay, so this scene is the one that everybody talks about. This one goes off. This is like some of the best imagery FromSoft has put out ever in any of their cinematics. I love this image. There's so much that's going on here that we can glean from it. There's this big mass of bodies. A lot of them don't have skin. So immediately I'm thinking Godskin Apostles or like the Godskin, the Glow-Eyed Queen. They're in charge of flaying or like killing, skinning the gods. For what purpose? It was unclear. But like looking at this image, I almost wonder if removing the skin allows them to like melt together easier. I think that there's some like weird conjoining instrumentality project that's happening where a lot of the previous era's gods or entities have to then sacrifice themselves or pass on once their age is done, and then they get put into the goop pile. I do think that this is the crucible or like the primordial form of the Erd Tree, and I do think that this is the material that the Erd Tree was made out of. I have a whole video on the Crucible and how in previous games like Dark Souls, the tree is like a big container for souls of the dead. So sorry, let me back up. Souls are like fire in the Soulsborne games, and they're the like collective experiences and memories of soldiers or bosses, and that fire can be used to light the kiln, which is like an object of creation. So in Elden Ring, it's a little bit different. It's kind of the same concept. We still have our big old tree of life, but instead of it being powered by a kiln, it's powered by like a blacksmithy table. And when you hammer the metals of creation and, you know, manipulate the Elden Ring, it allows you to change the metaphysical laws of that era. We talk about it like it's a program that's being run, and Queen Marika currently is able to change all the functions and like change everything in the program. And when she hit run, it spit out a ton of bugs and didn't run properly because she decided to remove the death function from the Elden Ring. And so now in the current age that we live in, or that like our character plays in, there's all these death-related curses. So those who live in death are reanimated by Deathroot, which is like leftover material from Godwin's murder. And then we also have the Omenborn, who can no longer be absorbed into the tree. And so they are seen as like despised, and they get forced to live in the sewers and are like chained up underground. They're really disdained by the Erd Tree. I'm going to talk about why they are in a little bit. But we also have like the wandering caravan and this idea of burning the tree being associated with the first cardinal sin. So I'll get into that as well. But if we take a look at some of the Crucible related stuff. So the red tinge in the gold coat mirrors primordial matter that became the Erd tree, the color of homeward yearning. So this idea of like a pre-Erd tree, the primordial version of the Erd tree was originally red. It was like a red mass. And if we look at the tree resin, it kind of looks like this goopy red substance that we see all the viscera of all the dead bodies and like the gutted gods and everything. And then if we look at the armor of the Crucible Knights, it says it holds the power of the Crucible life, the primordial form of the Erd tree, and it strengthens Crucible incantations. This is where all life is kind of mixed together in a melting pot. And the word crucible is also known as rutsubo, which is just like pot in Japanese. And there's a lot of pot imagery in Elden Ring, and I think it all harkens back to this idea of collecting the dead and putting them in something, putting them together in something, and then that creates law, or that creates like social ideas and social concepts. It creates like attitudes and memories and ideas, if that makes sense. That's why I feel like, for example, Alexander the warrior jar is very meek. And then after we fight Radon and he like consumes Radon, and we find after he's defeated, we find a little bit of his shard that has red hair inside of it. After he consumes Radon, he becomes like this champion. He becomes like, we see how malleable his personality and his experience is based on how the types of bodies that he puts inside of himself. It's really cool. I love this like imagery that things are all kind of loosely interconnected and have influence over each other. So it's really neat, and I love to see this. I think that what's happening here in this scene is that we have the gloam-colored sky. For those of you that are unfamiliar with the Gloam-eyed Queen, also known as the Dusk-eyed Queen, which is like a localization issue. She's not a character that we actually get to interact with in the game, so I think that a lot of people miss that she even exists, but she's in the Godslayer Greatsword and all of the Godskin Apostle items, the Godskin Tome Book, but she's the god that was in charge of making sure that the gods' era comes to an end, so that like even the gods cannot be immortal. They have to be immortal. Their era has to come to an end. So there's this idea of like a cycle of life and death that she presides over. Her color is violet or like purple, and Ghost Flame used to also be this color. She's loosely associated with the dead and the Deathrite birds. There's some kind of overlap between their imagery. I'm not going to get into that into this video, but anyway, we have this gloam-colored sky. We have the red mass of potentially the primordial form of the Erd tree. I'm not 100% that this is like the Crucible, like the primordial form of the Erd tree, but I think it might be. I'm like pretty certain it might be. And then we have almost like this gateway that looks like the entrance of the Erd tree, or like what could have become the Erd tree. And she's like hearkening in her era of gold. For those of you that don't know what her era of gold focuses on, it's focusing on life and abundance without death. So she's Queen Marika the Eternal. She presumably at this era believes that she'll never die, and that the Erd tree will continue to produce sap forever, and that it's this like age of plenty, and she's able to kind of like give out, and she's able to escape all of this death. She's able to escape her own mortality. She's able to prolong her era. The reason why I feel this way about her character is because it harkens back to Gwyn, and it harkens back to the characters in Sekiro. It harkens back to so many of these rulers that are wanting to like be immortal. But another way that you can interpret this scene is that Queen Marika was responsible for all of this, that she killed all of these people in order to usher in her era of gold. I feel like, given some of the primordial aspects of the Erd tree and the Gloam-eyed Queen lore, that she isn't responsible of this, but she's like responding to it. Like she's like, I think this is miserable. I'm going to bring in something cooler. But then when she does that, she accidentally like fucks it up. So that's my takeaway from it. But like, we don't know. I want to make that clear. We don't know. And this is all just speculation. I'm just speculating. It's okay if you disagree. And if you do, post your theories in the comments. Let me know what you guys think. Well, let's keep going, because this is a lot.
and so too was Shadow born.
Oh, shit, that line too. Sorry, I'm gonna like fuck it up. That line harkens back to Dark Souls, and just like the origin of creation myth and real world history. There's this idea that Disparity is born at the start of the universe. So, actually, hold on. Let me.
Grey crags, arch trees, and everlasting dragons. But then there was fire. And with fire came disparity. Heat and cold, life and death, and of course, light and dark.
All right, cool. So that line harkens back to that whole like concept of disparity, and a part of me wonders if it's at this point in history in which Marika causes disparity to happen, that the shadow didn't exist before she became the light. I kind of wonder if the Glow-Eyed Queen actually embodied both the concepts of life and death, and the more that I think about it, the more that that actually makes sense, because she's a maternal figure. She's considered the mother of the Godskins. She has an item called the Swaddling Cloth, so it seems like she's capable of birth, in addition to, taking away life. So it kind of seems like she embodied both concepts of life and death, potentially. There's also the dialogue that Melina has, who is like the closest NPC that we have to a Glow-Eyed Queen. She definitely is able to give us destined death, and she has like a moment where it seems like she breaks out of amnesia at the Frenzied Flame ending. When we destroy the Erd Tree, she's able to like remember these powers that were suppressed for majority of the game. But let me pull up that quote. She says, if you intend to claim the frenzied flame, I ask that you cease. It's not to be meddled with. It is chaos, devouring life and thought unending. However ruined this world has become, however mired in torment and despair, life endures. Births continue. There's beauty in that, is there not? If you were to become a lord, do not deny this notion. Please leave the frenzied flame alone. So I kind of wonder if this affinity with death that Melina and the Glow-Eyed Queen have also come with this paradigm of accepting and respecting life. Whereas with Marika's age, she fully wants to like circumvent death. So it seems like when she decided to just take the rune of life, potentially, that when she did that, it separated the runes and cast a shadow. It then created disparity. Like before, everything was one, which is what Hyetta and the Three Fingers say. Everything used to belong together. But then at some point in history, one thing was taken and then it cast a shadow. And I think that if this is the Erd Tree, if like this big mass is the Erd Tree, I think that that is like supports the naming conventions of the entire DLC. The shadow of the Erd Tree, she brings in this like golden sunlight at the base of this big mass, which then would cast a shadow at the base of this tree. So I think that that's like a very, like the shadow of the Erd Tree, like quite literally, there is like a shadow that's being cast because of this era of light that she's ushering in. So let's keep going.
Shadow born. What followed was a war unseen. One that could never be put to song. A purge without grace or honor. The tyranny of Messmer's flame.
That like the OST there and the imagery of the omen being impaled is like it's so powerful. It's like there's a lot that I have to break down here, by the way, guys, because there's a lot of historical references that are happening. specifically with Julius Caesar and some Roman conquests, the Roman campaign that were pushing back against the hold on one sec. I want to make sure I'm not going to say Celts. Am I going to say Celts? Pushing back against the Celts, please. Please, I'm American. Please help me. But yeah, pushing back against the... now I'm like confusing myself. It's Celts. It's Celts. Pushing back against the Celts. Specifically in reference to the Wicker Man. And I have to talk about this boss design. Please, please let me talk about this for a second. The Wicker Man, like, probably my favorite FromSoft enemy design of all time. Not from an aesthetic point, like it's not like I'm like, ooh, this is cool. Like if I'm thinking of guys that are just cool, this isn't it for me. But I think as far as like a historical reference goes, this is so hard. This is like amazing. So originally when Julius Caesar and the Romans were fighting against a lot of the tribes that they were fighting against, these tribes used the Wickermen. So the Wickermen belonged to the Celts, right? And they were used as like hold on. They were used as like ways to do sacrifice to then create ash to then use agriculturally. Although it's kind of uncertain how accurate that is because only 2 people in history have reported on them, Julius Caesar himself and a Greek geographer, Strabo. And they both mentioned that live animals and humans were put into these and set on fire. It's uncertain if these people were prisoners or if they were innocent people who were being sacrificed. But that could be totally historically inaccurate and could have been used by Julius Caesar to give credence to his conquests and to like want to push out these foreign groups. It's uncertain, but I think what's really fascinating is the fact that we have like a lot of Mesmer's troops are inspired by Roman centurions, although they do have some like other Nordic and like some Iranian like design beats. I do think that for the most part, they're supposed to evoke that Roman centurion aesthetic and also some Spartan aesthetics. But what's really cool is the fact that they're controlling the Wickermen. So it's kind of like a weird bastardization of a lot of the practices that they were trying to outlaw. And it feels like a mockery. This enemy feels like the Romans were taking like a holy thing and using it against those groups as like a mockery against them. And it's wild too because it's decorated with a big sun that it has like omen horns on it. So it's very clearly decorated by the horns of those that they killed and making a caricature out of their spiritual beliefs. And then there's also fire giant effigies on the side of it, which is like very disgusting. It is like very on par with a lot of the like really bonkers type of propaganda that's used against like certain ethnic groups. I feel like that is such like a powerful statement from FromSoft in terms of like enemy design, because we're seeing this like empire really coming down on the omen very, very hard. Something else that's really fascinating too is that this city that the omen live in, that Mesmer is sieging, we actually know where it is on the map roughly, and it's very Roman inspired as well. So it's like a subset of, it's definitely pre-Landal. It's definitely like a little bit early, like architecturally wise. Why don't my subscription alerts are working, I guess. Oh, it's I'm not streaming. Okay, good, I'm not streaming. My Streamlabs is just popping off. Okay. But yeah, there's like this wall of sorry, I'm so distracted. There's this wall on the outskirts of this city, and we could actually identify that it's this city. It's this structure, because it has the same wall right here with the same archway, same patterns. This structure is Roman in design in that it's using Solomonic columns. And these columns were made by the Romans to pay homage to the first temple of Jerusalem. So we have a group in the Mediterranean who are hearkening back to what they thought was an architectural design from Mesopotamia. It is not, though, but that's okay because they look cool. But this is definitely supposed to be like a little little Roman city that definitely architecturally is a little bit older than Landell capital. So the Omen used to live here, it seems like, based off of the cinematic. They used to reside here. They have religious practices here. They have like their lion dancers. We also have a couple of enemy designs too that show that the Omen had other religious practices too that have to do with the burning of the Erd tree. So specifically, these guys have little candle tree menorahs. They have horns. And if you read the candle tree shield, it says that it was the prophecy of cardinal sin. The lit candle tree design was forbidden in Landell and in the lands between. But in the Shadow Realm, in the area that we're at in the DLC, it seems like this was a normal practice, considering I don't think an oppressed group would be able to have that big of a city that's that decorated. Do you know what I mean? And it seems like these practices were suppressed and snuffed out by Mesmer and his forces. It also shows here, I know that like there's a lot of discourse around this particular enemy design and this concept art. A lot of people think that this is hearkening to Godwyn, and I can understand that because he has the waistcloth. And then also the pose harkens back to Godwyn's corpse at the base of the Erd tree. And some people thought that this was the black mark of death. It's not, though. Davi, thank you so much, sent me this overexposed image to show us that this is actually just his spine. It's not a cut. It's just like a very stylized spine, so it's quite dark. I don't know why I just drew him throwing his ass back, but it is what it is. But they both have golden saffron robes. They're a little bit different than like the frenzied flame. I mean, they're not, though. Actually, now that I think about it, if you pick the prophet starting class, you start off with saffron robes, and people have like collars around you. Like they wear that big weird cow collar, or like there's a collar that was used during the medieval times to tell people to like this person is a criminal, or is a slanderer, or is like not somebody that should be trusted. You start off with one of those if you pick the prophet class. So I think that maybe the prophet class might have to do with this like faction potentially. So that's super interesting. But they have to do with the burning of the Erd tree. That is their belief system. That's what they do. They're all about it. And it definitely seems like they weren't an oppressed group at the time. So there was definitely a change. And we know about this change too in the DLC, in the vanilla game. But there was definitely an era where aspects of the Crucible were deemed holy, and then were increasingly disdained as an impurity as civilization advanced. So this includes wings, horns, tails, breath, anything that's kind of resembling a dragon to any degree. But the Omenborn fell into this, and the Omenborn cannot be absorbed into a tree, but I think the reason why is because I think the Omen are supposed to act as the containers, if that makes sense. So I think that people are supposed to be sacrificing themselves to the Omen, and I think the Dung Eater is a little bit of that, but he's bizarre. The Dung Eater is bizarre because he doesn't even sprout horns, but the people that he's killed exist inside of him. And Rodrika tells us that when he walks around, she can hear the cacophony of spirits that are like trapped in him. And that's why he uses the Rancor attack and is able to like send out spirits when he attacks you. But the Omen are able to do that too. And they also see shit in their dreams. There's a bunch with the Omen that I think we're going to get with this DLC. I think we're going to get like a ton of Omen lore regarding like their purpose. But I think that it harkens back to the ancestral followers practices, where what they do is they're like a death cult. They kill beings that experience nose sprouting, and they give those spirits to bigger entities that do have horns. Right? So those entities then continue to sprout horns, and they start to turn into trees. And it's really similar to Mikola's tree circumstance, except Mikola had like endless sacramental blood and was able to feed their own blood to the tree. I think that in order for like people that don't have the weird eternal youth curse, that in order to like grow these trees, you're supposed to engage in sacrifice. And then the people that do sprout horns and are able to like act as containers and like take in all the spiritual energy, they start to bud horns. And so the budding horn says that it began to sprout on a beast that typically bears no horn. Perhaps it's a vestige of the primordial crucible. So I think that there's this imagery with sacrifice, mass amounts of dead bodies, mass amounts of spiritual energy, and like sprouting trees. And I think that there was this cycle of like, there's a tree, it rules the era, it's like the zeitgeist of that era, everybody's memories and experiences are stored in that tree. And then eventually when that tree dies out, you burn it and you plant a new one. And the ashes from the previous tree are going to fertilize and help bolster this like new tree. And so I think that this is my own little like tinfoil hat conspiracy theory that might be wrong, but I think that Mohg and Morgott should have been Queen Marika's next of kin. Because of the fact that they were born with horns, I think that that was definitely what was going on here. But I think the fact that we have some omen-born that are worshipping these like ancestral follower... Well, sorry, let me back up. The ancestral followers hang out in the Ul Palace ruins, which is an ancient civilization. They are not a part of it. They are new. This is like a new religious faction. They're saying, poo-poo to the Erd Tree. I don't give a shit about the Golden Order. Let's go back to the old ways. And so they then camp out in the Ul Palace ruins and try to recreate the rituals that were done in the past. And so that's what this is. That's what is going on here. But I do think that Mohg and his Sangui nobles are doing the same thing, but they're both doing it in different ways. It kind of feels like the ancestral followers are focusing on like spiritual energy and like the waters of the Undercities, and then it seems like the Omen are focusing on like this blood and rot and like feces and decay. They're focusing on like the almost like the viscera. They're focusing on like the gored aspects of sacrifice. So it's really interesting to see these two groups worshiping the same entity and like existing in the same spaces because they mirror each other in a lot of ways. I think it's very cool. But something that I think is extra cool is that the Omen-born city is based, like I said, off that Roman architecture that uses Solomonic columns that's harkening back to Mesopotamia and Babylon and Jerusalem. And we get a lot of that with the sick-ass architecture down in the Ul Palace ruins. So this is Jordan, which we see down in... I think that's Nokron. We see it down in the Ul Palace. Sorry. Tarnished Archaeologist pointed out that this guy, we call him Elden John on this channel. Tarnished Archaeologist calls him the Dynast. This guy is holding this tablet pictures a tree, which is kind of like thematic with the whole tree sacrifice rituals that we were talking about. But this tablet that's at his feet pictures the Babylonian map of the world. So that gives us like a good idea that this is referencing Babylon. This is referencing Mesopotamia. They couldn't be more over, like, they're beating you over the head with it the entire game. They're like, this, you know, we got Jordan, we got Jerusalem, we got Babylon, we got the Tigris and the Euphrates. Ainsel and Sheofra are obviously Celtic names. And we also have some of the Nordic river wells being represented with the Undercities. But I do think that the Tigris and the Euphrates being represented in the Babylonian map of the world, showing up in the Ul Palace, is also supposed to be an indicator of like ancient history and ancient culture and ancient spiritual belief. So yeah, it's really cool. I think that the fact that the Omen were paying homage to Jerusalem with these, or I guess like in this case, paying homage to the Ul Palace ruins, is neat. We're seeing this connection between like the ancient civilizations and the newer ones that we've run into. I also want to say, I want to preface this a little bit. The smooth columns, these spiral ones, were built to resemble the first temple of Jerusalem. However, the actual pillars, the actual columns themselves in Jerusalem do not look like this. This was just their like weird approximation of what they thought the Solomonic pillars were going to look like, but they actually do not look like that at all. So it's like it's like a very niche history thing, and I'm kind of surprised that they decided to even put that in the game. But another thing to kind of wrap all of this like column conversation up is that obviously we know that like Rykard is taking a lot of the rituals from the Shadowlands and recreating them. But we see some of the Solomonic pillars appearing in Mount Gelmir, and a lot of them are the Baroque versions of Solomonic pillars, so they're more ornate and have like tons of flowery designs on them. But what's really cool is that there's actually St. Peter's Baldachin, which has these kind of ornate Solomonic pillars. And the fact that we have like a baldachin that is over the entire lands between in this DLC is crazy. So you love to see it. There's so much design philosophy and art history that goes into these games that it actually like hurts my brain a little bit. But we can kind of tell based on like some of the architectural evidence, some little markers like this weird root system that's on top of the building, the decaying parts of the building, and then also like you could see it right here, the orientation of the baldachin right here and right here. We can tell that this Omen city that Mesmer laid siege to, that we see in a lot of the promotional art, is going to be right here. So say if this is the shadow tree, and say a lot of the promotional art is usually taken from this perspective, like it usually shows the player character here, and then we're looking at the tree. The Omen-born city is going to be on the west side of the map. And I think that has some really interesting implications. One, because the Old Palace Ruined Labyrinth, that is topside in Liurnia, is like right here. We also have the inverted Divine Tower / the Carrion Tower, which I think the way that we're going to run into the Carrions is I think that they're going to be doing some like weird experimental inversion magic that ends them up there. Like the person that's depicted in the hourglass looks like the Carrion NPC that we've seen in promotional art. So I kind of wonder if they've just like gotten stuck or ended up in the Shadowlands. I'm excited to hear their story. I really want to go in as an astrologer. Like I have a dragon, like a draconic build that I'm excited to go into the DLC with, but it would be really fun to like do a whole Carrion investigator, like a detective, to see what's popping in the Shadowlands. But yeah, I think that that's where we're going to end up based off of all of this promotional material. But yeah, in the scene with the impaling, I think I mentioned before, these are the lion dancers. You can clearly see the lion dance face on here. So these are some omen that are being impaled. This one also has a lion dance face. I might have to like show it to you in the trailer, but yeah, it's not just like one of these guys, it's like a couple of them. But yeah, man, this is like so much. Here, wait, let me show you guys. So you can kind of see it right here. You can see the eyes of the lion dancer. And this is my own, sorry, I'm like totally going off topic. Big Cooper snore. I have my own conspiracy theory that like the glass shard item in the game, in the vanilla game, is are the eyes of those omen costumes. That's my like weird little, they're such a unique color. They're like a weird teal color. And nothing else looks like these color-wise. Oops. So yeah, I don't know. That's my weird little tidbit for you guys. So we're getting a really good look at the tree situation that's going on. We have what looks like a tree that looks like the Erd tree because it's very straight and narrow, and it's like it's being strangled by another tree that doesn't have leaves, and that's like cracking this tree in half and causing more sap to spill. It's uncertain what that. I used to think this was Deathroot. Because like Godwin is still growing perpetually, and I wonder if we're going to see Godwin, but the shadow tree could just be, it doesn't look as black as Deathroot. It looks dark. It looks darker than this tree for sure. But I kind of wonder what this is and what the story is. And I think that that's what's going to be at the center conflict of Queen Marika and this era. So yeah.
And so kindly Miquella would abandon everything.
This area looks like it's on the east side of the map, but there wasn't anything that I could glean from this. We've seen this city a couple times. There's like a few little tiny cities that have the baldachin resting on it, like big pieces of fabric resting on it. There's this big tower that I'm really curious about, but nothing super outstanding here. We have the Miquella. I don't know if these are, so we've seen Sites of Grace in some of the promotional art and promotional material. I don't know if that's what these are or are going to be. These might be areas where we get to hear like a memory or a thought or something.
His golden flesh, his blinding strength, even his fate.
So this is, for those of you that are unfamiliar, this is Saint Trina. Saint Trina is identifiable by her purple color palette, and it's like a soft lavender. It is a little bit different than the Glowmaid Queen's color palette, but they're very close. And I do think the fact that there's this overlapping motif of like death and sleep, because obviously like the death bedroom takes place in it, the death bedroom. I mean, like there's a baldachin, there's the death bedroom, there's like this theme of sleep and death and shadow and like the spirit world. So I don't know, we're gonna get a lot of lore regarding her, I feel like. So I'm excited. For those of you that don't know, Saint Trina is like the feminine spiritual aspect of Miquella. So sometimes you guys might hear me refer to Miquella as they, sometimes you might hear me refer to Miquella as he, and then Saint Trina as she. I'm kind of malleable with it because the story is a little malleable with it. So let's keep going. That also looks a lot like the nascent butterfly and the lily. Alright, so this scene, it looks like this character, the female one that I've been talking about.
We choose to follow.
It kind of seems, so she's obviously spreading like the gold, and it kind of seems like she's, maybe we're planting flags that represent Miquella.
We choose to follow.
But it seems like each of these characters,
Will you walk with us?
yeah, and she's like asking us to walk with her. It seems like each of these characters is following this story for their own reasons. And I'm going to break it down. This character over here in the stone armor definitely resembles a lot of the golem enemies that we fought throughout the lands between. And I've always wanted to meet the golem worker or get more golem maker lore because he's in the story, but there's a lot of mysteries surrounding him. But there's a craftsman who made a lot of the golems in the game. And I hope that we get some lore about him from this guy, or that he is the golem maker. That would be really cool. But I love his aesthetic, and I want to do a pure strength, heavy endurance build for this game because of this guy. Like, I want to do a Havel build so bad. And then we have what looks like a Colosseum Knight that is affiliated with Godfrey's Colosseum. This girl, she's huge. She's beautiful. I love her. She could carry me. I'm excited to know her story. But I feel like she's going to have a lot to do with the warrior pots and the Colosseums and Godfrey. As it pertains to the Shadowlands, I think she's going to be that for us. This man right here is so mysterious. I don't trust him. So this looks like potentially a man with like a beard, or maybe it is a woman with a mask that has a beard. But I feel like this armor set reminds me of Yuria from Dark Souls 3. And like, I know that the darkness ending is supposed to be us embracing, you know, like the end of the gods and like the end of time, and then like a new cycle will begin. But there was just something about kidnapping Henri and like the Yuria plotline in Dark Souls 3 that really skeeved me out. Like I hated that. I did not like that. I didn't have fun doing that. And so anytime that I see armor that looks remotely like Yuria, I get like an ick. Oh shit. Thanks for the subscription while I'm recording. This character right here, we saw sleeping near St. Trina lilies in the underground in the trailer before. So this might be like a St. Trina cultist. So I think that they're following the Mikola Grace to potentially get more information about St. Trina. We love the EP. We love the EP babes. I'm like so excited about St. Trina lore. I kind of want to make a St. Trina character as well. And then this character in the back here reminds me a lot of Azur and Lasat. I wonder if this is going to be like our Carrion representation in the game, like our mage, but it's uncertain. It just kind of looks like they have that weird head wrapping, but I can't tell. They're so far away. And then we have our martial artist, our really cool spin kicky Ash of War guy. And I hope that we get to have that Ash of War and that we get to do our own little like CQC builds. That would be really fun. Okay, so there's nothing else. Oh, I also realized I forgot to tell you guys.
Of Mesmer's flame.
So this character, as far as speculation goes for this character, a lot of people think this is Melina because she's burning here. And so this could be the point in which she lost her physical body and she became burnt and bodiless, and why we find her spirit in the lands between. I don't know. I don't quite know yet. I don't know what she's holding. And it's like it's so vague that I don't even feel comfortable speculating just yet. You know what I mean? Like we don't know. This image doesn't give us enough that like I don't feel like I can even, you know, like during the tree scene, I'm able to be like, hey, this guy's gloom. Like I'm able to like pull from things I know in the game. Big Cooper snore. But this situation, yeah, like the only thing that comes to mind is Melina being burnt and bodiless. Her hat is interesting because it looks like a cowl, like it looks like a hood, but you can see the front of it doesn't have a mask or anything because her hair is like coming down in front of her face. So she's like holding what looks like a giant spear or like a thing that could, somebody said it looks like one of those, there's like a special kind of shovel for drilling trees out of the ground that is like a big spiral. People were saying that it looks like that. But I have no idea what this is. She's like fully... It seems odd too that like the soldiers are marching behind her. Like they don't seem to be looking on at her.
The tyranny of
I kind of wonder if they can even see this character. There was a piece of me that was wondering if this maybe was Mikola, who is like passively watching this, but I don't think Mikola would allow themselves to get... I think that if they were like an apparition, like watching Mesmer's tyranny, I don't think that they would be burning like this. This is like a person who's physically there.
This flame.
I don't know. It's interesting. There's a lot to break down in this trailer. It's bonkers. But I'm excited for the DLC. I'm excited to see what the Shadow Tree is doing. I'm excited to see what is going on. Like, why, for example, in the Shaded Lands are we seeing two trees, but in the Waking World or like the Lands Between, we're just seeing one tree? And a lot of people were speculating that the Erd Tree is like an illusion. And I wasn't sold on it before, because obviously it looks like it's encased in dragon stone. So there's just some like weird, there's definitely like the Erd Tree's nature is just very odd. Maybe the dragon stone is giving it this like power to revert or to like appear as if it's in a different state than it is. Maybe the Dragonstone is what causes like this time illusion. I don't know. But I'm so excited to see how the story is going to play out. This is all, like I said before, this is all friendly speculation. All of us are out here kind of like throwing spaghetti at the wall. So I'm excited to see what happens. Oh, I also wanted to talk about Mesmer's design a little bit more. In addition to him kind of having the Lorica plumata, there's some Spartan elements. There's some Iranian soldier Iranian militia elements, but there's a lot of Roman elements as well. Something else that I wanted to speak on, specifically, like I said, the Julius Caesar cowl, but something that I wanted to speak on with his design as well is one of our community members, Bree Bird, who's also an amazing illustrator, was talking to me about the Quorum, the Michael Moorcock books and like the characters, because sorry, I misspelled the Quorum. There's definitely like a lot of aesthetics that are being pulled from the Michael Moorcock books regarding Aurich and Quorum. There's like a whole book about like the dream world and like a bunch of other cool things that it's evoking. George R. R. Martin and Miyazaki are both fans of Michael Moorcock, so we're getting a lot of like really cool stuff from that. Obviously, we're getting some aesthetics from Berserk. We talked about that before. But it just kind of seems like this game is a melting pot of history and sociology and art and literature and a ton of things that, you know, Miyazaki has loved throughout his life. And so it's really cool to see them all represented in this story. So I'm very excited. I'm excited to see how everything's going to play out. And I wanted to ask you guys too in the chat, what is the character that you're going to be going through the DLC with? Do you have like a character story in mind? Like, are you going to keep a journal? What are you guys going to do when you guys go through the game? I think I'm going to go through with my Crucible dragon, like my, I have like a Crucible Knight type character that I'm working on right now. But I think I want to do like I said before, like a Carrion detective. Like a royal Carrion detective that's been sent out to like investigate, you know, Mikola and like what's going on in the Shadow Realm and everything, and to find that person that's in the inverted tower. I don't know. I just think it's all really like, I love Wizard School. I love Wizard School. So yeah, tell me what you guys think down below. All right, bye.